All right, so we got Travis on the line.
Yay.
Hold on, I'm gonna add it to the group. See if he's gonna. I'm gonna add him to the group call. There we go. Let's see if that works. Yeah, we have his. There he is, the man, the legend himself.
How you guys doing today?
Good.
There we go. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
Everybody, Travis Day. Everybody,
Gentlemen,
welcome to the base.
Citizen Ed and Zhane.
Zhane?
Yeah, we got Citizen Ed and Zhane with us. And Citizen Ed, I think you met him at the...
Indeed, he's a very pleasant guy.
Oh, why, thank you.
Really? Seriously, you're going to inflate his ego?
Oh, yeah.
On air. Okay, great. So we're kind of really happy to have you. We've tried this before. Now we finally get a hold of you. And
yeah, sorry, it's been a crazy travel time.
You know what? This whole Star Citizen thing is a big crazy travel, and I'm sure it's worse for you guys. For us fans, we're just along for the ride and having fun. Like, who would have a radio station about Star Citizen? Really? I mean, just a crazy Canuck here. So we had a few questions, and we saw that just minutes before we started the show. There was a ship pipeline that dropped.
Oh, yeah.
Comlink.
So that was really cool. That was really cool. I mean, we saw the whole flow chart and everything. I know there's people out there that are probably going to overanalyze that whole flow chart. All I was interested about is, hey, there's a final product at the end. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Well, actually, one of the fun things about open development, right, is that maybe there's somebody out there who's going to overanalyze that and come up with something more clever.
That's true.
There you go. We were remarking at how many stops there are for CR approval along the way.
Well, of course.
Finding that pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah, no, I cannot reiterate enough how hands-on he is on every aspect of the game. It's really remarkable. Like, I'm so much more used to working for an upper management structure that is upper management, and he is 100%, like, I think he hates all the business stuff. He really just likes making the game. Like, that's where his passion lies.
So I think we're just mentioning, Zane, when you were mentioning about all the different gates, the Chris gates we were talking about earlier.
Right.
There's what, 7 of them?
I think there were 7 on that chart. Yes.
Which is more than the quality gates that I've seen. 2 quality gates in the whole flow chart, but there's 7 Chris gates.
Well, I think those are one and the same, though.
Are quality gates?
Yeah,
they are.
Yes, they are. And to be fair, too, the one thing we don't put on there, right, is that as it goes through each stage, it's going into the build, and QA is reviewing it. Basically, from the time that you get to the hangar ready state on up to dogfight ready, it's in the build the whole time. So that's, there's an ongoing QA process in there that's not really, there's no gate on it. It's just, they have it all the time.
Okay. Right. So something that came up, and when I was looking at this, the comlink that dropped, there's a name for a few ships that showed up that I haven't heard of before. What is this Manticore?
An oversight, yeah.
Oh, it was an oversight?
Potentially, yeah. Well, I mean, we literally copied that status right out of our internal wiki, so
oopsie.
Maybe we didn't review it enough before we put it out.
So, cannot comment on the Manticore?
No, I can tell you that the Manticore is intended to be a spaceship. Actually, I don't know, because I did not realize that was a well, actually, to be fair, a month ago I was walking around the office going, "Hey, Dan, you ever heard of a Manticore? What the hell is this thing?" We had it on the list of ships to make, and I was like, "I never heard of this," and so finally found out what it was. But I just don't know whether that's to be announced later or not. But it's a spaceship for more than one person, and has implications possibly in single player. We'll see.
Oh, so it sounds different than I was theorizing. It was the Panther renamed, since that was supposed to get a new name.
Oh, no. That's well, at least currently it's still referred to as the Panther.
Mm.
And there is also to mention, I don't know if this was a slip as well.
Beyond Volper.
Well, that's one.
Okay, yeah.
What is this Zhane? Whatever, Zhane Volper.
That's what he just said. Yeah.
What is it?
What is it?
That is a Xi'an spaceship. That's, I don't mean I feel like a dick, but it is probably going to be a larger than the Cartu Scout and we'll probably have more heavy weapons complement, so it'll be more in the range of, say, the function of a gladiator or a retaliator, but not quite as big as a retaliator.
Sounds neat.
That's interesting.
So think of it more like a Y-wing.
Okay.
Probably the way to put it.
Yeah. That's kind of cool. I kind of like that concept, actually. And last but not least, speaking of concepts, something about a new Corvette.
Oh, yeah, so we need a new Corvette to replace the Idris. That's
okay. So
it's kind of as boring as it sounds. It's like, well, it's a frigate now, so now we need a new Corvette. And we just literally have something in there that says new Corvette to remind us that, hey, we have to come up with a Corvette at some point.
It's like a little string around your finger. Oh, yeah, Corvette. Forget that one.
Yeah, exactly. And well, and the other thing, too, is that, obviously probably should remind everybody that these are subject to change. So these are just kind of, the Y-wing for the Vulper is kind of just an idea, right? And until we get through to the actual design phase and the actual getting it concepted properly phase, it will remain just a notion. That is what I would describe it as to a concept artist. That's not necessarily what it'll end up as at the end of the concept phase.
Another question that I think we want to know is, what is your current role? And I know you've been on the Around the Verse. Is it Around the Verse or Across? I keep forgetting, guys.
Around.
Thank you.
Because
on the first one, anyways.
Well, your mom is so fat. When she goes on Around the Verse, she sits around the verse. Anyway, that's how I remember it. To be honest,
I will remember that.
Yeah, that was a generic your mom too, not your particular mom. I apologize.
We figured that out. It probably pointed at Zhane, anyways. So he's the punch buggy for everybody. So, what is your current role right now at CIG?
That's a great question. No, I wonder that every day. So when I first came on, basically it was the only guy here in Santa Monica other than Dave Paddock and Chris. From there, we kind of built up the studio. So I was IT guy, HR guy, legal guy, and I just basically did all the normal kind of producer functions plus building the office up. Once we got a good staff going here, I transitioned to where we built the team to build Arena Commander. So then I was the producer of Arena Commander all the way up through Point 9, so right up to Gamescom and the release of Point 9. And then we have basically got it down now to where most of the people working on Arena Commander are just located in the UK or in LA. LA is going to be focused on long-term just persistent universe space combat, Squadron 42 space combat in general. So all things ships, all things ship systems, programming features to support things like radar and signature improvements, gameplay functionality. That's all kind of the LA Studios focus. And so from there, I basically have moved into the role of the ship producer because it's, ships and all their inherent features. And then the Arena Commander actual gameplay module stuff, like building the levels, handling who's making the matchmaking UI, and just kind of all the general gamey stuff is being done out of the UK. And that's Ricky Jetley, who's a very, very talented guy, good guy. And then I'm also producer of the FPS. So I was just last week, the reason I couldn't make your show is I was in Redacted, visiting Redacted. And we've been really... It's the stupidest, longest running joke ever. We were actually contemplating for PAX Australia for their big reveal, coming out on stage, and we'd make a big deal out of it, oh, you didn't know who it was, and have sparklers going, everybody already knows. So well, it's just become a gag at this point.
They did take over today, and they said they jokingly might rename themselves Redacted.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, I feel bad because at some level, that's their brand awareness at this point. But yeah, no, that's kind of been my ballywick. So I'm kind of Chris's right hand here in the studio and do anything. I could call it director of special projects, whatever he wants, right?
Special project. Okay.
That's good.
I'm okay with that. I would be happy to be special project guy.
As long as that doesn't involve the short bus, but.
Yeah.
My case, it might. In Travis's case, probably not. Probably a big bus.
No, I mean, really, it's just, what it's about is just anything that's important to him, right? So we've kind of been together for a while now, since the beginning of this studio, and I understand, I think, well, I like to think that I understand what he's looking for, and I think that he trusts me to deliver on his vision for whatever it is. And so if it's, something like, hey, we need to look at the PowerPoint for the PAX Australia event, Travis, can you just go and format it and make it cool and interesting and hit all the points? Or, hey, we need to make sure that this particular thing on this particular feature is happening on some other module, in Squadron 42 or in Persistent Universe, and go check up on that and drive it and get somebody in charge of it.
So you're the go-to guy, essentially, to jump on something and get it done.
Yeah, and that's all. But that's all kind of extracurricular, right? That's just for things he's concerned about. And my normal day-to-day is Santa Monica, kind of personnel management and ships, items and components, and FPS.
Okay. Ed, you have another question?
Yeah, I had a couple. I think I'll go with first. People were reporting. I did a article today on the schedule, and somebody actually gave me some feedback that I was out of touch. That Arena Commander 2 and 3 had been merged.
That's news to me. So. That's a new concept. I mean, the thing is, if he talks about the features that were in 2 and 3, well, ideally, like what we'd like to do is see some of the features from 3 come on for 2. Mm-hmm. I mean, on the roadmap, we at this point have the FPS probably coming out slightly before V2. Mm-hmm. So what we'd like to do is try and get some of the FPS features that were promised for V3 of Arena Commander integrated into V2. TBD if that's to happen, but
capture the Idris mode.
Yeah, exactly. That would be a goal, right? Mm-hmm. Now, will that happen or not? Hard to say. At this point, it's pretty far away. The cone of uncertainty is too wide to say if that's achievable yet.
That might be past the singularity.
Yeah. But no, so I mean, the V2 and V3, though, will be different things. So if something slips from V3 into V2, then it will be replaced by something else in V3. I mean, that's one of the things I've really enjoyed most about working on a live product all the time.
Right.
Is that you can make those decisions of like, hey, priorities have shifted. This thing we wanted to do later is really important right now. Like key bindings, right? It, for whatever reason, initially, it didn't really occur to us that, hey, we're kind of testing out the basic functionality of if the game works, if you can load into a multiplayer match, how the stability is. And people were just crazy for key bindings. And it's like, okay, fair enough. In standard development, you just have like one uniform way of playing the game, like right up until maybe the beta, and then you start to put in all the variations, support all the different devices, because at that point you're feature locked, so you're not going to be going back and forth on, oh, this key's occupied by this, and we just added this thing. And so it's just interesting in that it provides a lot more agility that I'm not used to. It's kind of fun.
I think that would probably just be a difference in the priorities of developers versus players.
Yeah, exactly.
Players want to play the way they want to play.
Yeah. And they always say there's a classic quote, right? Is no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Not to imply that players are enemies. You have this plan and you go and you do it, and then it's like, oh wait, shit, we need more guys over here, or maybe we need to focus on this more. And that's the number one benefit of having the community out there. So, yeah, it's funny. People always talk about, oh, you guys get like a lot of negative feedback on this. I actually had a guy at CitizenCon come up to me, and his opening line was, I've sent you a lot of hate mail, and it's like, oh, nice to meet you too. But what I told him was, hey, dude, I've worked on plenty of games where it goes out there and nobody says anything. So I'd rather people were pissed off, because that means they care, than having people just say nothing. That hurts, Saying, fuck you, I hate you, that's fine. I can deal with that.
So send your hate mail.
So you're very happy.
You on that?
You're a happy man.
At least it means people care, people are interested, and what more could we ask for? The whole reason we all got into game development was, well, I don't know, all of us, I'm going to speak for everybody, but for me at least, is some of my best memories as a kid, as geeky as this might sound, even with my friends, are from video games, right? Mm-hmm. So I still remember moments of, like training specters onto people in the Oasis of Mar and EverQuest and just laughing my ass off as they got killed by things 40 levels higher than them. But those are good moments, playing Counter-Strike with my friends and, having everybody on speakerphone and then getting so pissed that I slam the desk so hard that it pops off the receiver and hangs up on the speakerphone call. Those are like things I will always remember. And so, I think my interest in being in the games business is just to be able to share, basically give other people the opportunity to experience that with our product, So have other people have memories created in our games. I think that's the real drive for a lot of people.
Well, that's great. I was watching Nikki Batgirl D'Angelo interviewing Ben recently. They talked about some interesting changes. I know you're doing a lot of retooling, particularly moving the ship pipeline, or the whole ship and space development that you just talked about. So things have been moving around a lot. Hopefully this will get things moving faster. But they also mentioned, Ben also mentioned that the project leads had been pulled into Santa Monica. So there's representation from each of the teams now. How does that work?
Representation from each of the teams. And I apologize, I haven't actually seen that interview, so I'm not 100% familiar with it. But I guess that what I would say is, let's see, trying to think how best to explain this. The whole thing started very organically, right? So you had the Austin studio was the first to come in line in January. LA followed suit in about April, May. And then we had the UK studio come online in January. And we've had Montreal, the behavior guys. We've had Redacted since about October of last year. And so it all just kind of evolved as we found the right people and the right teams in the right places that we wanted to capture. And once we've captured those teams and started building, then as the game has evolved and the game's gotten, I would say, larger in ambition, and it's also gotten more clear how we're going to divide up responsibilities. So it's basically about efficiency, right? So if we're doing all the space stuff here and designing all the space feature functionality here, and some in the UK as well, it didn't make sense to have all the ships being run and produced out of Austin, because then there's this giant kind of chasm between the people actually designing the things that these ships do and the people designing the ships. And so for efficiency's sake, you put those two together. In the case of the FPS, it's probably just the fact that, well, I'm probably producing that just for the fact that I'm here right next to Chris, and that's very important to him. So just having a touchstone for that. But I would say, like, the Persistent Universe, for example, is entirely under the direction of Tony Zurovec. I mean, obviously, Chris reviews and approves everything, but that is still being run remotely. So Project Leads moving to Santa Monica is not something that's happened. It's all, I would say, there are just, there are definitely people that report from other studios directly to Chris, but that's probably the way it should be since he's the vision holder.
Right. So there's nobody on Tony Zurovec's team that spends a lot of time in Santa Monica?
No, I think, we all get together and Chris will go out there, or Tony's been out here. Key members of the team will be out here. So Sean Tracy's come out here, and other developers have come out here. Chris Smith's another guy. He's very involved with ships, and I would lay down in traffic for that guy. He's a super top-notch dude and also a great artist. So he comes out a fair amount. And it's basically just to get that one-on-one contact that's really valuable so that you can kind of get in that simpatico rhythm of thinking on things.
Okay, so I clearly misunderstood something in the interview, which is cool. But so I think a lot of us are concerned, TM brackets, and about, we were really excited about what we saw at CitizenCon 2014, but the roadmap does indicate it's taking a little bit more time. And there's good sides of it, because it's clear that somebody has taken a look at what's been going on and what needs to be done, and put a whole big dose of reality into the estimates.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we've been updating our roadmaps continuously internally, and I think the public is very aware too that we've been doing that. And I think the reality is this, right? So Chris started out to crowdfund this game initially with the idea that he was going to get $2 million, get some investors to fund it, and it was going to be, what you're seeing in Arena Commander, but with less fidelity, probably was going to be the initial dogfighting, right? All of a sudden, it's like, wow, we have the resources and the team that we can make this into a fully fledged test bed for everything in the persistent universe. And so it's like, okay, great. Well, let's do that now. And it's kind of been that moving these larger, more complicated things up in the timeline to do them sooner, so that you don't have to do it later, or you get a solid foundation earlier. So that has caused a lot of front-end delays. It basically extended pre-production, right? We've started laying the groundwork for all of these things that I think the mantra of 2015 for us is going to be delivery, delivery, delivery. Because that's when you're going to start to see a lot of these modules that we've been talking about start to come online, and you guys will start to see the direct advantages of the parallelization that we undertook, right?
Well, that would be great. Yeah, I think everybody would love to see, and we know you guys are working really hard on things, and I think there's very little really actual ill will, just a little nervousness about, scope creep, because when you talk about it, the fidelity levels, and we do eventually want to play the game.
Yeah, me too.
And I think a lot of us were still expecting Squadron 42 in the first half of next year. So hearing it, I mean, even I was at CitizenCon 2014, even seeing that roadmap, I didn't really grok that it was going to be at the end of the year until Chris mentioned it on 10 for the Chair. And I think that happened to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's one that, it's, well, Squadron 42 at least is being done by the UK studio, and I wouldn't say so much that they've fallen behind so much as we have been laying all the, I feel like I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but we've been laying all the groundwork for what will make that possible, right? So there's things that, to do a single-player campaign on the basic level, you don't need to do this high-fidelity motion capture. You don't need such high-fidelity characters. You don't need all these, high-fidelity cinematics. You don't need these absolutely huge, gargantuan environments. But what they're going to make is a super, super cool game, unlike anything any of us have ever played. Actually, unlike anything that's ever been on the market before. So getting those systems online takes time. And Squadron 42 is one of those ones that unfortunately suffers from all the other modules because it inherits and combines, kind of like the persistent, right? So it is inheriting space combat from LA. It's inheriting FPS from Redacted, and obviously it gets tooled and changed to fit their specific needs. But we are creating kind of one universal paradigm. So things like it's going to make use of mobiGlass. mobiGlass has historically been done out of Montreal with our behavior guys with oversight from the persistent universe. But there's all these areas that overlap and intersect that all come together into one story for Squadron 42. And so as these different pieces have gotten either larger and more in-depth, I think, cooler in the end, or as the schedules and timelines for the different studios have moved around, Foundry 42 is kind of doing their best to put together all the pieces that they can in the time that they can. But I honestly, the biggest thing I do believe is what Chris said at CitizenCon 2014, which is it is absolutely going to be competitive and with any other AAA game on the market. And I've never seen a game before that offers the ability to have a high fidelity vehicle simulation with a high fidelity realistic tactical shooter with a full kind of cinematic experience, all of the old Wing Commanders, or you talk about Mass Effects and conversation systems. I mean, it's going to be something else when it's all out there. So I think it'll do really well, and I think it'll be well received. So yes, it's going to be a wait, but I think it'll be well worth it. Although, man, I drove myself up the wall in the last 3 months just trying to wait for Beyond Earth to release. Oh my god!
Have you got a chance to play it yet? I haven't.
I got home at about 11:30 last night. I got home from work and I went upstairs. My wife was like, "Oh, we should go to bed," and I was like, "Yeah, you're right." And I kind of put my Surface tablet under my arm, downloaded, installed Steam, and fell asleep, like making the first 3 moves of the game.
Nice.
So you say you got home at 11:30. What is a typical work week for a guy like you at CIG? I mean, 11 o'clock at night means you were working long hours.
Oh yeah, definitely. So it ebbs and flows, right? It's like production in any game company. Right now, we're coming up on PAX Australia. We have a couple of cool and interesting things coming out in a patch soon. I'm kind of touching all of these different things, and also got all the internal guys to deal with. So it's right now I would say is my crunch time. So that's why it's been hard to get on the show. It's been hard to take some time out. And during times like these, I mean, CitizenCon, I was up for 42 hours straight when I was talking to Ed.
It was all my fault.
No, yeah, he kept me up there. Oh my God, it was crazy. We were together till 3:00 in the afternoon the next day. No, but so I mean, it ebbs and flows. But it's not. Nobody's sitting here like with a gun to my head, right? It's I have all these things that I want to do, and so I do them, and I'm not bent out of shape about it, I guess is the thing.
So you're passionate about what you do. Essentially, the passion's driving you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we got Zhane upstairs now. Zhane on any given night will be here between, 11 o'clock at night and 3 in the morning. But unfortunately, I guess
not me.
Yeah, there's another Zhane.
Yeah. But and I always joke with him. It's like, if we ever move offices, they're going to basically pull you out with the furniture still sitting there. But he's single guy, young guy, really loves this. This is like his passion is UI and HUD and design and visual design and layout. So for him, he could just go home and do this like he normally did, so he just digs it. And this is fun for him. And then you have other people that have like, Matt Intrieri is a technical artist here. He has a daughter, young daughter. He goes home every night, sees her, has dinner with so it's kind of runs the gamut, depends on the person.
That's interesting. I've made the comment before, and there's arguments about quality of life for developers. I've seen a few discussions about this, but to me, working on Star Citizen seems like less a career and more a calling, creating the future. And that's kind of how I feel about what I'm doing with the website as well. So I can definitely see that. It's interesting to see that you have people that actually are doing more of a 9 to 5 kind of schedule.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of all depends on your work. So, Matt, our HR lady is not here until midnight every night, I assure you. It really depends on what you're doing, right? And Matt Intrieri has been here, like if he's setting up the lights on a ship or he's trying to finish a new script that's going to really improve the process for people using Macs, he's a tech artist, right? That's what he does.
Right.
He might be here until 9 o'clock some nights because he's like, man, I just want to, I want to figure this out, or I really just want to finish this by tomorrow so I can send it out to everybody because they're all going to love it, or, it's just it's interesting in that this industry gets a lot of a bad rap in general for having poor quality of life balance. But this is also an industry where people are not as motivated by money as you would think. I mean, sure, money is great, but at the point that you're covering somebody's, I call it like their monthly nut, like their car payment, their rent, and everything else. At that point, everything else is kind of, okay, I'm taken care of, I'm good. I found that people get most engaged and are least likely to leave or wander off as long as they have something interesting and good problems to solve. That's where Star Citizen really shines, is we're doing a whole bunch of things that have never been done before, and certainly a bevy of things that have never been done before in the CryEngine. And so a lot of guys find that to be very, very fun and very, very engaging because they're really, a lot of us are just problem solvers. Artists make art and they think, they try to achieve the most beautiful perfection, and we put out some of the highest poly art, the most beautiful art you can find. That's our goal. So, going to that is very attractive for them, coming from working on something that has to run on the 360, the Xbox One, the Wii U, and they don't really care how it looks. It's just a background prop, whatever. So that motivates them, and it's fun. That's why they're here, is because they want to do that.
And right now, if you were to put yourself in those shoes, and what is driving you right now? What is the small project in your day that your guilty pleasure that you spend a bit of time on because you love doing it? What you must have one little thing that you like to tackle yourself.
Try to think. Things I really like to do, like really love, is the commercials. The commercials and our cinematics and the visual effects are probably the things that are like my absolute favorite to basically go in and piss off the people working on them with my feedback.
Oh, wonderful.
But no, I love it because for the M50 commercial, for example, right? John Griffith and Chris Wolak, they do a beautiful, amazing job, and I had been out of town. My wife and I went on vacation leading up to Gamescom, and it was like the first time I got to see it and see it all the way through since it had been like in the earlier concept stages. So I was really excited. I was like, "Come on, guys, show me something beautiful." I love this stuff. And they're showing it to me. I'm like, "Okay, that asteroid's pretty low res. That planet in the background with the magma, I'm not really digging that." And I'm super blunt with my feedback, but and they were kind of like, "Man, fuck this guy," you know what I mean? But
this guy think he is, man.
yeah, exactly. But I'm just going to be honest, right? And so then I'm like, "Okay, do you agree with me or not?" And yeah, I do. Okay, well then, here I got this artist, and this artist. Bring them over here. Look at this. You fix this one. You fix this one. You fix. Okay, let's make it better by tomorrow. You'll have it. And so that's the stuff that I really enjoy is the cinematics. Like, hey, think about this camera angle. Hey, maybe it should blaze closer to the camera. You'll see in the PAX, the upcoming PAX demo is something that has been fun to work on for me. But yeah, so I produced all the commercials, and that was probably the thing I loved most.
In PAX Australia, can you give us a clue what's going to be the commercial for that one?
It's not a commercial. It's the introduction to FPS.
Ooh.
So it's kind of built a little more like a level, and less like just flying around in the Hornet like we did early in dogfighting.
Right.
A little more story driven, a little more give you a flavor of what that's going to be like.
I can't wait to see that.
Now the Redacted team said there was not going to be any PvE in the first release, which is kind of an interesting choice. So that means a lot more people running about in mayhem.
That is definitely correct, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're going to have some kind of team mission or something like that, like you might have from some of the more SWAT-y or Tom Clancy-esque games.
Yeah, so there's going to be definitely plans for a variety of game modes that have different kind of varying objectives rather than just shoot each other in the face all the time. Now that said, yeah, the guys at Moon Collider or Intelligent Artifacts with their product Kithra, they have been very, very focused on the ship AI. And for a Marine Commander, and we've kind of been improving that as that's going to be a large part of the experience. And then what time they are spending on human NPC AI is much more oriented towards things like what Squadron 42 needs for interactions and character-driven, NPCs in the persistent universe. So their focus has been in that area. Now they do have, AI running around. You can give them guns. They will shoot at you. They will shoot each other. But that's probably going to come more towards the beginning of next year as that really gears up for the FPS elements of Squadron 42. Will probably be what's driving that.
Well, at least I hear there's going to be a full lobby, so you're going to be able to get together with teams. One of the problems right now with team games, right, is you can't really communicate with your team. You can't even really select your team. So it just ends up being chaos anyway, even though you have a team effort.
Yeah, for 1.0, that's definitely, the lobbies are super, super important to Chris to get that in. Now that we've kind of got a lot more of the larger bugs ironed out, it's time to start really kind of tooling it for consumer fun.
That sounds good. I think people will be glad to hear that.
So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but one of our listeners is asking, are we anywhere close enough to FPS release to get a date?
Nice try. No, there will be an event in the future where we will unveil and release it.
Fair enough.
The FPS team actually answered it. It's not exactly a date, but they're hoping Q1 next year.
If they've already said that, then yes, I will nod my head and agree that that is an accurate sentiment.
So we know how to get answers out of Travis. We just maybe invent an answer that had been said before and see if it's not what is Damn
it. You've got my Achilles heel. Some guy on the internet said it. Oh, well, yeah, that's true.
I was being honest. I was not tricking you.
No, that's fine. We were just recently having those discussions with them, so it makes sense that it would be front of mind for Kedron.
I had another one here. this is probably more of a technical question, and I'm not a technical kind of guy, but I'm hoping you can simplify the answer for me. Is in the flow chart that you have for the ship pipeline, it's the white boxing damage states happen before the gray boxing is done. So I think that's a question you had, Ed, and I'm trying to understand why.
Well, I didn't really have... You were asking me to dig into the process, and I was pointing out that was one of the interesting things, is they've got that parallelism. And I was surprised to see that in the Around the Verse interview.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the good examples of how they're coming up with interesting ways to speed up the process of getting us those ships, which we're all very happy to hear.
Yeah.
More ships, better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to answer your question, so I mean, there's two things, right? There's the white boxing for functionality, which is, does the character fit in here? How is this landing gear going to come down? Where is it going to retract into? How do I get cargo in and out? What are the metrics of the largest piece of cargo that I can move in and out of the hold based off the the aperture size that we have? Those are all kind of the logistical white box things that happen. Now, the damage breakdown can happen based off of the initial concept, the initial 3D blockout model, because even if we don't have all the exact specifics of those kind of minutia and metrics, really, we can still say, okay, here's the part of the wing that we want to break off. Here's where the engine, the engine's not going to move at this point. So engine's going to be here. We'll be able to damage that. And it's just more about getting the groundwork of what parts do we want to break and how much, while we can still sort out little details. Because all you're really going to do is be like, color this red, like you see on the Cutlass, color this red, color this green to show the different parts. And these are the different parts that we're going to model. Now, maybe down the road when it bulks up a little bit, that's not really, if the Cutlass got wider, that's not going to mean we're going to add new parts. That whole piece is still going to be the whole piece. So that's kind of where you can save a little bit of time.
Well, thanks for all that work on that. I mean, it's really tremendous. Both the presentation of it, you talking about it on Around the Verse, and all the work trying to get this worked out, because clearly it's been a problem trying to get these ships into the hangar and flight ready.
And we, and I don't want it to sound either like we don't think we're all the way there yet. We're still ironing out a lot of kinks. That's our idyllic process. Now, still sometimes we find ourselves violating that, which is not good. So we're still improving on that. And there's definitely room to improve on that pipeline even. So it's like any plan, right? You just get better and get better. You learn more. Things are going to get added, like the paint system that will have implications. Things will need to shift. We're kind of looking at some improvements we can do to the damage system to improve a little bit on the fidelity while reducing the number of draw calls and issues that we have with performance. So there's different things that will affect the pipeline that'll be, that'll basically have to be accounted for.
Yeah, I have to say, it's shocking how much work the damage states are. And while appreciated, I actually wonder if procedural damage might need to be reevaluated at some point.
Yeah. I guess I'm always hesitant when this is not a broad. This is a broad strokes, painting it with a broad brush kind of an answer, but like the hook of our game, like if you look at No Man's Sky, right? Mm-hmm. You've got crazy cartoon planets that are very cool, they're very foreign, they're very interesting, and it's a whole art style unto itself, right? But that art style really lends itself to procedural, because procedural is oftentimes does not look very real if it's pure procedural, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you have a stylized art style, it works really, really well. And Chris's vision for this game has always been ultra high fidelity, kind of James Cameron, Aliens kind of a feel to it, universe a little bit. Some of the planets feel a little more Blade Runner, some of them feel a little more Star Trek, but very high fidelity filmic environments. And
I think it's really depends on the procedure you use to a certain extent. I think you're right. It's it's easier to do cartoony with procedural, but I think you can do real. Think I've seen some examples. It's harder.
Yeah, and actually there are, and I guess what I'm trying to say is pure procedural, probably not, and not ever. Hey,
who's that guy? Chris.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, just saying hi. I'm gonna run out to a rehearsal dinner for co-founders. He's getting married this weekend on Saturday, so I'll make the rehearsal there.
Oh wow, that's great.
Ask lots of hard questions of Travis. I think you guys are gonna like the 0.9.2 update this week, because playing it is much better.
That's much better.
You're going to chase up Dan, getting the data in for
all this stuff tonight. Yeah, he said he's not going home tonight until it's done. So.
Okay. All right, cool.
Cool.
Take care, Chris.
Great to see you, Chris.
All right, and you like the FPS when we share that too.
Yes.
Can't wait.
It's going to be cool. All right, later, guys.
Take care. We got blessed by Chris Roberts, the man himself.
Yeah. No, so back to the damage states. Yes, that's one of the things what I talked about. We're looking at changing some of the things about the damage states. Is we're not going to go full procedural on the models, meaning we're not going to be procedurally damaging them because that can look a little hokey and bad and it's a little too uncontrolled. But we are looking for some of the earlier damage states where you're starting to see not fully chunks blowing off, but just it taking damage, moving to a more procedural system. So I think there's elements of it that can be incorporated that might actually,
and things like that, or
exactly.
Okay.
Scratches, laser burn marks, scoring, scorches, all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. That would be an area where procedural could work really well, and you wouldn't have, my battle damaged Hornet has the exact same bullet holes as the next guy's.
Precisely, exactly.
I wonder how this is going to work in the larger capital ships, because that seems like a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah, well, and that's actually the capital ships. It's the Squadron 42 team, as Alistair Brown, Ali, is the director of graphics engineering for us. And that was one of the things that has kind of driven this idea to change, because you don't want to maintain separate damage systems, like one for small ships, one for medium ships, and one for capital ships. That makes no sense efficiency-wise. So as he's been looking at the issues and problems surrounding the large scale of these capital ships, this is kind of coming out of that. One of the recommendations was looking at some of these procedural techniques that we can use. And so as they've been building the Gladius in the UK, they have been also kind of using the Gladius as their test bed. We tend to pick a ship that we're making in the pipeline, if it's at the right stage of the pipeline, and use that one as the test bed for a new technology, and kind of do this how we want to do it and figure out all the kinks with it. And it might slightly delay that ship, but that way, once we're confident on how that's going to work, we can just apply that to all the ships at once. So the Gladius has been the test bed for the new damage state system.
Cool. Just like the Hornet was the test bed for the last damage state
Exactly, and the Mustang is the test bed for the paint system currently. Actually, it's funny you guys were talking about, thank you for the styling of the post. When I finally saw it go up today, because I just sent a giant wall of text to Ben. First talk, and I literally had red highlighted insert picture of Hobbin's hole here, and then I had a little zip file of attachments I sent him. But no, him and the guys at Turbulent did a really nice job styling the post, and that was really much appreciated. And I can tell you a funny story about the origin of that post. Was we were writing last month's monthly report, and Chris had originally said he wanted something on the ship pipeline, like a little update, section in the monthly report. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I can do that. And Alex had written the Santa Monica studio update. So then I spent a good, I want to say, 4 hours or so one night kind of writing up that ship pipeline document. And then Chris was leaving. It's probably 9 o'clock at night or whatever, and he's walking past my desk, and he's like, hey, yeah, you're working on that studio report. And I was like, yeah, I'm doing the ship pipeline bit that you wanted. And he's like, oh, okay, cool. And he takes a look at it, and I'm like, yeah, see, it's like a big State of the Union on how this all works and the status of all the ships. And he's like, oh, well, that's very, very cool, but that's also entirely not what I wanted. So can you actually just update the Santa Monica studio report to include more information, and then we'll do this later? And I was like, oh, okay.
The one time you managed to fail at reading his mind, right?
Yeah.
But
that was
it's
whoops.
You managed to anticipate something that he didn't know he wanted yet.
Well, yeah, it's funny because then I went and talked to the community guys and was like, hey, I kind of have this thing for you on accident. So I don't know, see if you like it, see what you want to do with it. And, Ben comes back. He's like, oh, well, that's great. We just had a meeting with Chris earlier this week where he was saying he wants to do more things like Death of a Spaceman and go deep dive on different parts of the project. And I was like, well, you guys are going to look like you're doing your job. Here you go.
Travis saves the day again.
Love it when a plan comes together.
Yeah, I love it when fate conspires.
So, one more thing back on the damage states and capitals. Have you looked at space engineers and how those large ships hit each other and deform and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically using the block-based system. And yeah, Brandon Evans, our UI programmer, he spends way too much time playing that game. Well, at least for a while, addicted to it, loved it. Myself, I played it a little bit, but not like extensively. My issue is I tend to get bored without other people to play with, and nobody wants to play with me. So,
Aww.
I kind of, like it had its moment in the sun, right, where Space Engineers were really hot for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I was like, I don't know if I was crunching or something, and I was like, oh, I got to check that out when everybody's whatever. And I finally got a copy of it, and I like log on, and none of my Steam friends wanted to play it, and I was like, they're like, oh, that's old news. Like,
yeah, I think as a game, I mean, it's kind of Minecraft in space on a level, but I thought it was really interesting how those ships dealt with damage. And I think there might be something there that might be applicable, because those large ships should deform like that when hit.
Yeah,
by something big.
Yeah, getting like proper soft body physics would be rough on something that big. Be interesting, but yeah, it's that is one area where Allie is still very. There is still a lot of work and research to be done in the area of capital ship damage, and basically the level of simulation we want to go to and can afford to go to, even on a quantum computer of the future.
Right, Ragdoll Bengals comes to mind.
Yeah, exactly. Well, those guys, BeamNG is a group. I don't know if you guys have heard of them. They do a lot of soft body physics stuff. They've created some of the, if you've seen some of the cool demos of like a old 1970s, 80s Chevy pickup that's like driving around in a level, and you see it like crunch into something, and the whole thing deforms the way it would.
Yeah, I have one of their tech demos, and I play with it every once in a while. It's impressive, but at the same time, it's very demanding.
Yeah. Yeah, and so they a long time ago they made like a very basic Hornet as kind of like a tech demo for us, and it was pretty cool. But at the same time, it's incredibly expensive when you talk about wanting to have hundreds of ships on the screen at one time fighting.
There is that, and there are people that want thousands.
Yeah. The other thing is it can be very spiky, right? Because you're handling a lot of data with a collision, but then so it's like, yeah, we can have 100 people flying around, but if two people hit each other, the server crashes. It's that kind of a thing. Ebbs and flows. Yeah. It was cool, though. The tech demo was fun. I have to ask, have you guys seen the Star Citizen Imagine trailer that the fans put together?
Yes. I was pushing it heavily on Twitter, as a matter of fact. I thought that was amazing.
That thing is friggin' awesome. Chris showed me that one morning because he was like, this is great. This is awesome. I love it. I watched it, and I was like sending it around the office and making everybody watch it because, it was like Paul last night. He was getting pissed off. We're integrating something called Localytics. It's an analytics data metrics gathering software, so we can see like next time in the next patch when it goes out in 13.2 or 0.9.2, we'll be able to see how many people are turning ComStab on and off, how many people are dying by collisions, how many people are dying from this weapon, that weapon, where in the maps they're dying. So it's good, it's how you get all your metrics for gameplay tuning, balancing, do people use this feature or not. And he was just getting pissed off. He was like, oh, this stupid compiler, it hates me. I swear to God, it's just dicking with me. And I was like, hey, I sent you a link on Skype. It'll remind you why we do all of this. And then he sits down and he watches it, and he's like nodding his head as it's going through. And then he comes back and he's like, yeah, that was pretty good, man. And I was like, yeah.
I had pretty much the same reaction, actually. I was having a bad day, and I plunked that on because I saw it on Reddit, and it was fantastic. It really turned my day around.
Well, now I have to go watch this.
Yeah, I have to watch it too. Ed, why haven't you told me about this?
Yeah, dude, on YouTube, Star Citizen Imagine. Like it is.
The first thing after the show, that's what I'm going to be doing. Imagining, that's what it. Okay, so Star Citizen Imagine. Well, I'll tweet all about it because Ed didn't tweet it to me.
Yeah, I tweeted it to you. Well, I didn't tweet it to you. I guess that's accurate. So I had a couple of questions. Had a couple people that really wanted to know. We had at one point that there was going to be some of the smaller multi-crew ships might make it into 1.0 as single player.
Yep.
Is that still possible?
That's still the goal.
So like Cutlass and maybe Freelancer?
Freelancer probably not. No.
Okay, but Cutlass
a little too hefty. Actually, it's funny enough. I always think of the Freelancer as being super big. It's roughly the size of the Cutlass, but the Cutlass is definitely on the docket.
You could lock everything forward on the Freelancer. I bet you could do that.
Yeah, well, two things. One is the side turrets would be a little bit of kind of wonky if you're locking everything forward because they're pretty wide offset from the body and can't articulate in too far without hitting the nose.
Yeah, that sounds bad.
That would be bad. Back of the head. Yeah.
And the other thing too is I think we want to try and say the Freelancer particularly falls into a category where it's not necessarily supposed to be the best at combat, right? Raw combat, and that's really what Arena Commander revolves around right now, with the exception of say like the M50 or 350R and Capture the Core. And like I talked about a long time ago, I think on the first episode around the verse, we're really starting to look at different kinds of competitive gameplay modes that will promote different kinds of ships than a fully loaded Hornet, right?
Right. I mean, I'm a Freelancer Max owner myself, so I'm waiting for the space trucking contest to.
Yeah. Well, things we talked about is at least a first pass of having a supply run game mode where there's basically a central source of supplies or a central cargo area that both teams are vying for control. I mean, like area dominance of. That you actually need to go load cargo into a ship, and so obviously the Freelancer will have the highest score potential. So things that basically push for, discover the jump point mode, where all of a sudden exploration ships have the highest score potential. So it's about creating varied gameplay is what we're looking at, and so the Freelancer is falling into a category where I think we want it to go with that game mode.
Well, I can tell you a lot of people are interested in that. Highly encourage you to follow up on that idea.
And really that's the thing is I think I want to make clear to people is like Arena Commander is, well, first of all, it's the first blush of Arena Commander in space combat. That was the idea, right? And then as we move into things getting more and more towards the persistent universe, we're fleshing out all of these features more and more and these ships more and more, and part of that is adding these game modes and play styles to Arena Commander that are basically it is a test bed for the persistent universe for everything space related in the PU. So as come online, we will add them. It's not just because we think shooting is the coolest thing.
Yeah. I have to say the funniest thing to me is when people start talking about why are they wasting time developing these modules? They should just do the game.
Yeah. Those ones kind of do, like, I admit, like I said at the beginning, people being upset is good because they're interested, but it's stuff like that that just makes me go, I roll, How can you be doing stuff like the FPS? You should just work on the persistent universe that also contains FPS. What?
I think we pretty much ran out of questions, or we're also running out of time too, and we don't want to take too much of your time, Travis. I know you're a busy guy and you've been doing a lot lately, so.
That's fine. And Chris on his way out reminded me of all the things I need to do tonight before I go home. So.
Yeah, did he mention something? You mentioned something about patch 9.2. Am I mistaken? When he left, was it garbled? So there's something in there that we're going to be happy to see. Can you share, or is this something we already know?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's something that you guys already know. We've done a pretty thorough, I don't want to say overhaul of the HUD, but basically targeting and flight controls as they relate to the HUD have had a redo. It makes it much more easy to shoot fixed weapons. Not because we enabled any kind of auto aim or anything, but actually because you just went to like looking at modern fighter jet craft. So we've got like a lag pip reticle now. We're kind of cleaning up a lot of the HUD elements so that they're a little more minimalist, and you can see more of the ship, and you kind of get more of a direct corollary between where you're aiming and where you're hitting. I think it feels much more satisfying. One of the other things we did is, everybody's controlling about mouse commander, the mouse and keyboard are super OP. So for the joystick, and really what it comes down to is, the problem is when you're flying around, and we got race mode, we've got space combat, and those two kind of have different control nonlinear curves that you'd want. So on racing, you don't really care about maintaining a steady beat on anything. So you want it to be super snappy and super responsive.
Right.
As soon as you start pushing on it, you want it to just snap to its maximum yaw or maximum pitch. Whereas in dogfighting, that sucks. Because then all of a sudden, especially when you have a stick with a low theta like you do on the gamepad, right? It doesn't have a lot of distance, so you don't get a lot of range physically. That low theta makes it so that you need to make it less sensitive, like significantly, even than the joystick, at the beginning, and then exponentially ramp up with a little bit of a plateau in the mid-range. And so it's basically been toying with all these different curves and making them dynamic. And that's the cool part, is now the game has more awareness of what you are doing contextually. And that's going to be a big push. So for a mouse, it's less important, right, because you're just moving your mouse. But for a joystick and for a gamepad, it knows if your target that you are currently actively targeting with your targeting computer is in front of you, and as it comes within kind of like a cone in front of the ship, it says, hey, you're probably trying to aim at that guy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deaden a little bit your input and slide to the linearity curve over, so that you now, all of a sudden, 1 to 100 is really like the old 0 to 25. So that prevents you overshooting. Because I don't know if you play with a mouse or a joystick or a gamepad, but like on the gamepad and joystick, you significantly overshoot a lot. Yeah. You're kind of you're overcorrecting a lot. And that's not a function of anybody being a bad player. It's a function of the fact that the linearity curve for the controller setup is not ideal for those. And so this will basically intelligently say, okay, he's trying to hit this, and it'll deaden the response and sensitivity. And then obviously if you push hard right, it'll just go, okay, fuck it, he doesn't want to do that anymore.
That sounds great.
Is that something that we can turn on and off too? Because I know some people out there are just wicked good with a joystick, and I'm sure they have the sensitivity in their own wrist. Now, is that something that we turned on and off?
It is something that will later be able to be adjusted and be an option in the menu and all that. For now, we're just kind of seeing if people like it, if it works, if it's a good thing. The best part is, to be honest, I just noticed that I'm better. I don't really notice. It's one of those very, very, very subtle things. So all you'll notice is that all of a sudden you're going from a 50% hit rate to a 75% hit rate.
I'd like that. I can't hit a damn thing right now.
The thing that did that for me, I know we're running short on time and we need to let you go, but really quick, I was super happy in the last big update to discover that my track IR was working in the game suddenly.
Yeah.
And you guys kind of snuck that one in. And the fact that I can use the track IR on my gimbal guns to the whole look to aim thing, that for me I can hit things now.
Yeah, well, and actually that's a whole other thing is, speaking of look to aim, there's kind of a new mode that we have where if you've got somebody targeted, as you push around on the left stick, say on a gamepad, for example, but just basically if you're controlling the attitude of your ship, your head will lead that direction that you're adjusting towards. So you get these cool kind of almost cinematic moments when you're in a dogfight. If you're chasing a Vandal or something and he breaks high right and you push high right, all of a sudden you're kind of looking up through the canopy of your Hornet as it pushes around to come onto him. So it's kind of a
nice.
Cool
Are there going to be some improvements in the like cinematic camera and the ability to capture some of that?
So that you'll be able to do just, yourself. Now 1.0 coming soon, TM. That has actually a lot more emphasis put on getting. So if you remember the Arena Commander, the initial launch trailer, that was all captured in game just using camera rigs that we'd flow graphed in. So it was just AI flying around, and we just kind of switched between cameras and captured what we thought were pretty cool shots out of the editor. And that system is going to be available now to players to do that, to spectate.
That'll be fantastic.
That's the goal for 1.0. So you get some more of the cinematic camera perspectives with a little more camera control. Because, I mean, one of the things, right, is I think some of the best videos are the ones where people find these interesting camera angles we didn't even know you could achieve.
Yeah.
And so kind of, you know, we're all, you know, a lot of the people that worked here at some point have modded games or worked on mods. And, you know, that's really, to us, that's really neat. Like the stuff anything FPS does, it's kind of annoying that he breaks open our pack files and proves our encryption's a joke. But the stuff that he puts together is really cool. So we want to kind of encourage support and give the tools to make that possible.
That'd be great for like Twitch streaming as well. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the other things, is having the concept of a spectator in multiplayer matches too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be
Looking
great.
forward to that.
There's a lot of people that are looking into doing a community tournaments and cups and all that kind of stuff where people fight each other. And obviously we'll need to have a spectator mode so people can watch this and not just hear it over, you know, a radio or something like that.
Yeah, and that's something that Sandy's really been championing. Championing?
We'll take
anyway,
it.
Yeah. I'll get it close enough. But yeah, that's been very important to her. And that's something that I think, you know, she said in CitizenCon that we're looking into next year is, you know, the question is, do we put together our own tournament, or do we just basically support and group up with a lot of the people that have been putting together? Like, I mean, there's guys out there that we've seen on the forums and been following that have entire rule sets and how they're going to run the whole thing already laid out. And it's like, oh, geez, why roll our own? This guy's already thought of everything. Let's just support him, you know? So that's definitely something we're going to be looking into for next year with the release of once 1.0 comes out.
I think Citizen Star News actually ran the first tournament, the Pitchfork Challenge.
You got to rub
23rd.
that in. You have to rub that in.
Well, I have to bring it up because the guys that just did the Aurora tournament claim to be the first tournament.
Oh, I see. Putting your foot down. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
Planting my flag.
Yeah, just one other thing before I go, because you know it's very rare that we have an opportunity to do something. I know there's a lot of feedback in the community last year that people were very upset about the Veterans Day promotion and donating to the Wounded Warrior Foundation and everything. I think tomorrow we're doing something that is you'd kind of have to be a dick if you didn't donate to it or if you were against it, which is just the Extra Life Charity Foundation that So James and I will be here tomorrow. James is going for a full 24 hours. He'll be streaming on the RSI Twitch channel, so the Star Citizen Twitch channel. We're going to be playing some Civilization. Yeah, that was my app. Maybe it's going to be a bunch of us from the office in and out throughout the day playing games with him for a good cause. So, you know, if you're interested, tune in. We're just going to all be jaw-jocking and playing game.
We did mention it before, so we're already rooting for you guys.
Yeah,
Well,
I think
we'll make sure we get some publicity out and hound some people to show up and donate.
Well, even if they don't donate, just participate. Make it a full house. It'll be fun, you know. That'll encourage others to watch and donate.
We can do that.
So thank you for all your hard work and the great interviews and the video this week.
Dude, no worries, man. This is this is an absolute pleasure. It really is.
Thank you very much again, Travis. I know it quickly before you go. Did you keep one of the base T-shirts that one of our DJs gave to you at PAX East?
Yeah, actually, I think it's sitting in my closet.
There we go. So
I will say that I think it fits my wife. It doesn't fit me. I need more of a parachute size. Like, I get all my clothes custom from a guy in Brazil that manufactures parachutes.
Well, we can work that out because I think I wear the same one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Travis. I really appreciate you taking this time out of your busy days, and we can't wait to see what else comes out from either the next PAX Australia or another comlink that, like the last one, which was great. The Pipeline. That's an eye opener for a lot of us, I'm sure.
I really, really, really am looking forward. I'm not looking forward to the flight. 16 hours, which is miserable for a guy my size, but it is going to be a week from today, basically, just about.
Yep.
I think everybody is going to be blown away. It's like people get really excited for Call of Duty every year or Battlefield every year, and those games look pretty good. But this is, I mean, I am impressed by what these guys have done. So I think everybody's going to be really excited.
It better be good now. You're raising the bar.
Yeah, you raised the bar pretty high there, sir.
Yeah, no, the artwork is fantastic. Some of the things that they've done they've actually got animating eyeballs, so your eyes are actually what's looking around. So there's this cool effect when you're wearing a helmet, you can see the glass there in front of you, and then the HUD is actually rendering on the glass from little holo projectors, but it's actually there for real. It's not just stamped onto your camera. When you're running around in the game, you're actually moving your head, and then when you get to the extremes of how far your head can move, you actually start to move your eyes instead, so you'll start to see the inside of your helmet like you would in real life.
It's exactly what I was telling these guys earlier, and they didn't believe.
We were literally talking about that about 2 hours ago.
Oh my god, dude! It is fantastic, and they're really super talented guys, and I think people will be impressed. And if they're not, then we'll work on it.
Well, thank you very much, Travis. And
all right, guys. So yeah, I'll actually leave this time. Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Hey, it doesn't matter to us. It's just you have work to do, and Chris is probably going to expect something out of you tomorrow from the sounds of it.
And a good weekend to have.
Mm-hmm.
So have a wonderful weekend, and again, we're going to mention about this extra life for you, as well as our support to James and the rest of you guys that are going to be participating in that tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really cool thing James is doing. So yeah, I'm glad to see people are into it. It's a good cause.
All right. Thank you very much, Travis.
Later, guys.
Have a good one. And that was Travis Day from CIG live on the base, and we got quite a few answers out of him. What do you guys think?
And a surprise appearance by Chris Roberts.
And we did.
Yeah.
Chris Roberts. That was wonderful.
I was watching all the people. I was actually watching all the people in the window behind him the whole time. I was like, is that Chris? Is that Chris? Is that Chris?
The other Zhane was going by. He was the guy in the shorts.
I saw him.
Yeah. I got to say, that was lots of nice info right there. We're obviously going to have to put that out in the news somehow, Ed.
Yeah. Hopefully this recording happened.
I have a backup.
Great.
So we have overshot our show by about 15 minutes, but that's okay. I mean, Snow is not here, but we're going to call it a night, obviously. I want to thank you all for tuning in this evening. Thank you very much to Travis. He's still listening, probably not, but he's probably gone to work already. Again, thank you very much, Ed and Zhane, for tuning in and being the co-hosts again this evening. Appreciate it very much.
Our pleasure.
This show is not mine. I mean, it's more of a community thing now at this point. Oh yeah, now we're having requests in. Play some July Talk. I will play some July Talk, and then like Silman. Hold on, let me find out. We're gonna play.
No, Tia's, Snowed One is under the weather tonight.
Yeah, she is under the weather. I mentioned it earlier in the show. She's under the weather, and we wish her speedy recovery. She should be back next week. Should, being the operative word here. So I want to thank you all again for tuning in, and keep your eyes peeled on Citizen Star News. Ed is probably gonna do like a little debrief on what the interview was all about, and I'm probably going to edit the interview and have it in the MP3 format, and I'll be putting it on the front page of the base. So
I'm not going to do anything useful.
No, and Zane's just going to be looking pretty. So once again, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. Did any of you have anything to say before we go?
I think that's a no.
I'm exhausted, man. This was quite a challenge. I'm happy we got through it, and check us out at citizenstarnews.com.
There you go. All right, folks, you have a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Friday with another edition of the Friday Night Show. Until then, have fun, or something, or go get drunk, because that's what I'm probably going to be doing.